Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Ashraful Aid Humanitarian Organization Zakat Workshop 101. And we would like to thank you for joining this workshop. It's a very, very basic workshop on Zakat. It's also more of a refresher introductory course on Zakat, just to give people a basic understanding. We know the month of Ramadan, generally people want to dispense of their zakah and give their zakah. And so this workshop is just to give you that basic understanding on how to dispense your zakah. So inshallah, this workshop should be about 40 minutes up to an hour from 11 to 12. And we're just waiting for a few more people that will be joining the workshop before we start, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, we have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us iman, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us that even in thus difficult circumstances here in South Africa and many places in the world with this coronavirus, Muslims are still discharging the zakah, and the zakah that is being discharged is a very integral part on mitigating the challenges and the economic challenges that thousands of people are facing around the world. And the charity which is given in Ramadan, those actions which are done in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us much more in at any other time. But what I personally feel, because of the current circumstances that we are in, inshallah, that will be even, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us even more. On the ground, working with Ashraful Aid as a humanitarian organization, seeing the suffering of humanity is really hard, so it is really painful. So inshallah, by us understanding how to give our zakah and dispensing our zakah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us, one for the discharging of our ibadah, which is the giving of zakah, one of discharging it in the month of Ramadan, and three, also discharging it at a critical time when thousands and millions of people require aid and require assistance. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us blessing. What if you have any questions, there is a chat function that you can provide. You can type in your questions, and inshallah we will try to respond to those questions towards the end of the workshop. So in terms of the Quranic ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in terms of our obligation. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوب وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن سبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. And then as sadaqah, and in this case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of sadaqah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here means zakah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says that zakah is for the fuqara, for the poor, al-masakin, the poor as well. So there are two different categories of poor. One is the poor, and different ulama have different interpretations, but they are interchangeable. Some would say that fuqara means someone that has below the nisab, that is generally poor, but is not from our viewpoint suffering. Whereas al-masakin are people that are extremely poor. They have nothing, nothing at all. So a fuqara could be someone that is earning, but at this point in time he doesn't have anything with him, so he could be classified as a poor person, whereas the masakin is someone that doesn't have anything at all. He's uh, totally in need. And the ulama use this interchangeably. Some would say that al masakin, the fuqara, is someone that doesn't have anything at all, whereas al masakin is someone that has something, but he has below the zakah nisab. And then the third category is amilin alayha, those employed to collect the zakah funds, and this is generally in an Islamic country wherein those that are employed to collect zakah, they are paid, they pay for the efforts from zakah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ, that to attract the hearts of those who have been inclined towards Islam. And this would mean that people that are very close to accepting Islam, or some ulama would extend it to people that have just embraced Islam, to give them zakah so that they become inclined towards Muslims, they become familiar towards Muslims, they become more loving towards Muslims and to embracing Islam. And there is a lot of different fiqh uh, masail concerning this mu'allafati qulub. Inshallah, we will have a little bit of a discussion around this as we go along. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of ar-riqab, the freeing of the captives, those that are slaves. And Islam pioneered and encouraged the freeing of slaves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that one of the means of freeing the slaves is through the effort of through the means of zakah. And then wal gharimin, those that are in debt. Many people are struggling. We understand the economic circumstances, and we should try to assist people that are in debt. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also speaks that wabani sabil, those that are in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the mujahideen, those that are fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those that are in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also speaks of wabani sabil, the wayfarer, traveler who is cut off from everything, someone that is traveling. Although he might be rich at his home, but because of his current circumstances where he is, he might be in some difficulty, might not have access to funds. Then inshallah we could help those people with zakah. We've also seen this scenario playing out. There have been so many Muslims that are sort of stranded in different parts of the world, and now they don't have access to their bank accounts, they don't have access, some of them are in quarantine in different parts of the world. So our zakah could also be channeled if they don't have any funds, or to help them come back home. So this is in a contemporary sense, we could help those that are traveling, and those that are cut off from from financial aid. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is farad upon us, it is a duty imposed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it is binding upon every Muslim that has the means to pay his zakah and to give zakah to those that are in need. So giving your zakah, it's an intrinsic part of being Muslim. And Alhamdulillah, we've seen that by and large, we as Muslims in South Africa and around the world, we dispense our zakah. It is a means of uplifting and removing poverty and suffering of people, and economically improving the lives of different people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes the verse, Wallahu alimun hakim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-knower and the all-wise. So this is a very, very beautiful ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala categorizes us, the recipients of zakah, those that can receive zakah. So when a person owns surplus zakatable wealth, to the value of the nisab rate for the duration of one Islamic year, then zakah of 2.5% is due on that surplus zakatable wealth on that particular year and date. And such a person is considered as a wealthy person and is obliged to disperse the 2.5% of zakah to the recipients of zakah. So this is a broad definition on who needs to pay zakah. And what's important here, inshallah, we will also discuss this, which is called the nisab, which means that amount, that threshold in which makes a person liable to pay zakat. And so there are a few conditions. One, a person, in order for him to give zakah, he must have the nisab, which is the threshold, that amount which now would make him liable to pay zakah. So I think the current amount is around 5,400 rand. So if a person, in terms of cash assets, in terms of maybe stock value, and he doesn't have any debts which are greater than that, then if a person, say for instance, has 10,000 rand, that person would have to pay zakah. And if he had this wealth for a period of 1 year, then inshallah that person will now become liable to pay zakah, 2.5% of that amount, which will then go to the recipients of zakah. So inshallah, if you do have any questions on that, you can also type it in, or if you don't understand, you could always type in the chat, and inshallah our technical guys will inform me if there are any questions, and we will try to answer those questions, inshallah. So the nisab, the zakah, which is the qualifying threshold. So if a person owns a combination of the above mentioned zakatable wealth, that is the nisab rate, zakah qualifying threshold, which would be to the value of 612.36 grams of silver, which is about 200 dirhams, and the equivalent rand value of 612.36 grams of silver is daily calculated by the Jamiatul Ulama and Radio Islam. Or if a person, so it's in terms of that amount of silver or its equivalent cash value, or if a person owns gold, then the nisab for his gold is 87.48 grams of gold or its equivalent cash value. Then if a person owns only silver, then the nisab for his silver is 612.36 grams of silver. So this amounts, I know many of us, we don't really deal with gold anymore, but these rates are calculated almost on a daily basis by the Jamiatul Ulama or by Radio Islam, and you could get these indicators. So the lesser amount, so it would depend that if gold is more expensive than the silver at that point in time, for that amount, then we will go with the lesser amount, which would make a person now in the category of zakah. So because it's 101, the easiest is just to log on to the Jamiatul Ulama website or go on to Radio Islam. You'll see financial Islamic indicators, and wherein a person will then get the value for the nisab. Here's an example. This is today's one, the Islamic financials, which I got from Radio Islam. You can see the zakah nisab, which is 5,497 rand and 77 cents, which equates to 612.36 grams of silver. So if a person has cash amount greater than 5,497 rand, this will make a person now liable to discharge zakah. Okay? And if a person has less than this zakah nisab, then a person will become a recipient of zakah. So I'll say that again. If a person has more than this, let's say hypothetically a person has 10,000 rand, then it is necessary for a person to discharge his zakah. But see, if I had 1,000 rand, which is less than 5,497 rand, then I can receive zakah. Okay, so this gets changed almost every day, and it's important that we keep our eye on this values all the time, especially when we want to work out that who is in a category of zakah and who can receive zakah, or also from your own personal self that I am in the category of zakah to discharge my zakat. I have to now pay my zakah. I have to now give my zakah, and this is the threshold amount. So the recipients of zakah, uh, which we which we mentioned earlier in the ayat of Allah, which Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has mentioned in Juz 10, that the poor, the fuqara, meaning low income or indigent person. The second is the needy, the al masakin, meaning someone who is in difficulty, someone that is in need. There are many people uh, that are in this category. So sometimes the mistake many of us make is that we feel that a person, he is not in the category of zakah because he's got a car and he's got a job. But the reality is that that person might be in the category of zakah and he might require assistance. And many a times, and especially in today's economic times, the Quran also mentions in Juz 3, La yas'aluna nasa ilhafa. Because of their self-respect, they don't go around asking people. So you'll have those that are very poor. You can obviously see that they are poor, but then you get those people that you can't really gauge. They look like everything is very fine, but la yas'aluna nasa ilhafa. They are now in the category of zakah, and this is very very important. I want to stress this, that in today's economic time, because of the lockdown, there are so many people that have not earned for this month, and because of shyness, they will not ask people. But it is our duty that we need to go and seek out these people. And this is where I will implore the ulama, I will implore the mutawallis of the community that you need to make an announcement that whoever requires assistance, we will be there to assist him in the most discreet manner. And so, employing one alim or giving it to the imam, that the imam, if you require any assistance, then speak to the imam of your locality in a most discreet way, inshallah. As a collective, we won't divulge that you require assistance. Then the mutawallis and the community members get together and channel funds through that imam. And we can see this in our communities across South Africa, and we have been inundated with many of these requests that people that for this whole month they haven't been paid, or many of the employees have told them that it will be 3 weeks or 1 month unemployed, where you will not be paid. So many of these people are today are in difficulties. So let us see how we can channel our funds to them. Then those that are employed to collect zakah funds, it is important that we can help them in terms of the collection of zakah. There's many parameters of this, and I'm not going to go too much into these fiqh masails, but the organizations knows, and the Islamic governments know how to then pay these people to in terms of their zakat collection. But I would like to speak on this little bit just to give a very interesting dynamic um, with regards to what amount could a zakat collector be paid in terms of zakat. And there was a very interesting article that was published post a conference, I think it was in Cairo. And inshallah, I'll try to maybe share that, wherein they give that a person that collects zakah could be paid up to 12.5%, although it could be more, but they would say that up to 12.5% of in terms of the zakah collection, wherein a zakah collector could be paid. So it's a very good to know uh, uh, something for your information. And inshallah, I will try to share this document. I've got it somewhere, and inshallah, I will try to share this paper that was published. But inshallah, as I said, it becomes there are many parameters around this, and we will not go into it because this is a very basic introduction to zakah. Then those whose hearts are to be reconciled, meaning you Muslims, friends of the Muslim community. There are many also fiqh masail surrounding this as well. Those that have are close to embracing Islam to utilize zakah to attract them towards the Muslims. In terms of the Islamic countries, most of them would follow the qawl or the statement of our great Amir al-Mu'mineen Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an, wherein he says that this part was when Islam was at a weak point in time, but now and it was expedient at that point in time. And there's a nice detailed article in Ma'arif al-Quran wherein a person could read this and for further information. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh then mentions that this was at a point in time when Muslims were very weak, but now because of the strength of the Muslims, it is no longer that a person that is a non-Muslim could be given zakah. And most of the ulama around the world, they share this view. So, but as I mentioned, it's a very technical argument, a technical fiqh argument that can be deliberated. And thereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks those that are slaves, that are captives, those that are debt-ridden. And it's important that we try to assist our Muslim ummah to get out of debt, because today's slavery is those that are in debt. Today's slavery are those that are now caught up in debt, wherein people losing their houses, losing their cars. And here also, I would like to speak a little bit in terms of debt, in terms of general advice, that we as Muslims should not, first of all, go into debt unless it is absolutely necessary. Okay, so from the default position that we have is that we shouldn't incur debt unless it is absolutely necessary. And that if a person is in debt, we can help that person get out of his debt through the means of zakah. And what's also very important, while it comes to my mind, is that many a times we need to help our family members in terms of dispensing or discharging zakah. So who do we give our zakah to? We should look at first people within our own family. We as an organization, many a times one person gives us zakah, that same zakah we go and give it to his cousin. That's a reality. Or we give it to his brother. Many a times we have seen this. So the reality is that we should try to give our zakah and try to assist our family members, those that are very, very close to us. And if I may digress from this and elaborate, is that if a person helps his family members, he's actually going to get two rewards. One, the dispensing of his zakah. Secondly, the helping of his family and maintaining family ties. So he's going to get two rewards. And I know it's sometimes very difficult because because you're so close to a family member, you can see their weaknesses. You can see, oh, all right, the children are a little bit lavish here, or they squander money here. We see it. So it becomes very difficult at many a times, or sometimes there are family arguments. We know those people, they always speak about us, they always talk about us. So, we're not going to help them. But the Islamic perspective is that we need to overcome those challenges and forget about all that and say, this person needs help, let me go and help him. And the beautiful part is that you don't even have to tell him, yeah, take my zakah. You can even say, this is a hadiah for you, no problem. So you don't have to tell a person this is zakah and give them the zakah. You don't have to mention it. You can just say, here's something for you. Here's something for your family. Have a nice Eid. just take it as a gift. You can even classify it as that, but you know what's your intention. It's not a problem, just so that the other person doesn't feel uncomfortable. Because many a times people, if you tell them, can you take my zakah? People feel a bit uncomfortable. They feel a bit demeaned. So you can even sugarcoat it and say, here's a hadiah for you, and this is for you and your family. So inshallah, we should try to help uh, our family members first, whether they in South Africa, whether they abroad. Our family has first haq in terms of our zakah. Then we need to look within our communities and try to assist people within our communities. And this is also very important. Sometimes we see people giving zakah to to organizations out of their community, but then people in their own community are struggling and suffering. So work with your community members. Many masjids have zakah funds. Let us try to assist those zakah funds. And many of these masajids then need to be aligned to other organizations. So if they do have surplus zakah beyond their community, this can then be channeled through to uh, through through to the organizations. And every organization, every community should have organizations, welfare organizations that need to be set up so that people in their local community uh, can access those channels and those funds. And this is very, very important, especially for us that is living in a non-Islamic government. Many times, zakah funds, if it is an Islamic country, will have its sort of Baytul Mal, but wherein we, as a Muslim minority, we need to set up these micro zakah funds so that there should be no suffering Muslim, no suffering widow, or no suffering orphan. And inshallah, it will be a means of us helping our community, inshallah. Therein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about those that are in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as I mentioned, the wayfarer, meaning those who are stranded or traveling with a few resources, inshallah, we can help them. And as I mentioned, even if they are wealthy, at home, but at that point in time they don't have access to funds, inshallah, we can assist them. Okay, so what are items that zakat is paid on? You look at your cash, your stock in trade. So if you are trading, you have stock, gold, silver, then your debtors and loans. So if you loan people funds, then you would have to still pay zakah on that. And then you look at your livestock. If you own livestock, which is to a certain amount, you will have to pay zakah on that livestock. And just to extend it a little further, when you talk of cash, whether it is in the form of shares, whether it's in the form of Bitcoin, a person has to pay zakah on that as well. So cash, it's your savings, cash on hand, your petty cash, cash in the bank, saved income from property investments, dividends received, cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. So maybe a person has 10,000 rand cash on hand. Maybe he has 10,000 rand that is in the bank. Maybe a person has 10,000 rand in the form of shares. So this person's total amount would then be 30,000 rand. So 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. He will have to combine it. That will give him his, when we say cash, the cash amount in which a person has. Okay, and he will then have to pay 2.5% of that. Stock in trade, stock used for trading, investments in stock, assets, shares, and commodities, agricultural produce for trade, properties that are leased, fixtures and fittings, investments in leased assets, etc., are not considered as stock in trade. So if you have properties and you're not selling properties, but you have properties that you rent out, those properties are not zakatable. It will just be from the rent that you receive, wherein you're going to have to pay zakat. Okay, then properties purchased for resale are classified as stock in trade, and stock in trade is calculated on the current cost price. So here there are different opinions from by various ulama. Some ulama feel how this is worked out is the current market value of those goods. Okay, and some ulama say in order to, so that some would say it will be your current selling price, but there is also a group of ulama that feel that in order for you to work that out, if you are a retailer, you would have to phone the wholesaler and ask them that this, maybe I'm selling a cell phone, what's from the wholesaler, what's the value of that amount, and that would be considered as your current your current cost price. Whereas some ulama have of the opinion that it needs to be your current selling price. But inshallah, in both ways would be fine, and inshallah your zakat would be discharged. That's why it's important that as business owners you understand the value of your stock and you know what's happening in your business, and inshallah work out the value and discharge your zakat. You could discharge your zakat in stock, or you could discharge your zakat in cash, whichever is easier for you, and which is also easier for people that are going to discharge those stock. I just want to go a little bit and speak on, can you give your old stock as zakah? Okay, remember the Quranic ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when we give charity, we shouldn't give charity that you yourself will not use. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about people that give things which they love the most. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. That extreme forms of righteousness and goodness is to give from that which you love the most. And that is why we shouldn't give stock that is redundant, that is not usable. So, for instance, now we want to clear out, it is now summertime, and now you give organizations all your winter stock to give zakah. This happens. Now it becomes exceptionally difficult for the organizations to give out winter clothes in summer. So that organization actually has to wait for winter to be able to give out those clothes. So it becomes very difficult at that point in time. So give what is appropriate at that point in time in terms of your zakah. And this is the moral thing to do, the ethical thing to do, and the good thing to do in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very, very, very important. Sometimes people give us things to discharge. It becomes almost difficult to give out those items to people. So ensure that when we are giving out and discharging our zakah, it is items of value that people can use. Okay? And inshallah, once you do this and have this open heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you even more. There'll be more barakah in your business. In terms of gold and silver, the jewelry items that are 50% or more in terms of gold content, like Kruger coins, gold ornaments, zakah is due on 24, 22, 21, 18, and 14 karat gold. And you establish the carats and the weights of all the gold items separately by a jeweler. In terms of silver, jewelry with regards to the items that are 50% or more in silver content, like silver coins, silver ornaments, and then you will have to combine all these items together to get, and if that weighs more than the zakat nisab, then you will have to pay zakah on this. And this year also it is a little bit difficult for many organizations, because sometimes there are women that have jewelry, that have silver that has been given to them, and it doesn't put them in the category of zakah, but they don't have any cash liquidity. So it becomes sometimes very difficult for organizations to be able to help so many of these people. But what's important here is that every year send it to a jeweler, and there are many jewelry shops that know how to work it out for you in terms of what's the amount that you have to pay or the value of, say for instance, you have a ring, or you have some you have some jewelry, necklace, bracelets, etc. Okay, in terms of debtors and loans, monies that are owed to you, private loans, trade debtors, there are no zakah on debts that are written off or debts that are denied by the debtor, and there is no evidence to prove that he owes. However, if such a written off debt is recouped after many years, then there is no zakah on it for the past years, but zakah will be due on it for the current zakatable year. So yeah, when you paying your zakah, if you borrowed someone money and now they owe you money, you need to look at it in two ways. That this loan that I'm giving off, is it I'm most definitely going to get my money back. You know, but now you know this person. Most definitely, I'm not going to get my money back. So you need to look at it. Is it an easy retrievable loan? Okay, so when it is an easy retrievable loan that you know you're going to be paid back and someone is paying you back, then you have to give zakah, or you have to give zakah on that loan. And this is very important. You don't have to give it at that point in time, but only when you receive that money. But if you say, for instance, now your zakat is due, and you owe, and you borrowed someone say 10,000 rand, you don't have to pay zakat at that point in time for the 10,000 rand. You can pay it when you receive those funds. That 10,000 rand, when it is repaid back to you, say after a month's time. But many a times it's easier just one time to pay for that, because in case you pass away, something happens, and people might not know you owed, or you borrowed money to someone, then that zakat would still be due on you. But many people, and it happens many a times that you borrow money, you don't tell people, oh, I borrowed this person money. That is why in your will, it's important to note it, that who you borrowed money to. This is a very important thing. We borrow people money, we should note it in our will. And normally, our will is kept, there is a journal that is kept, and it is very discreet. And this is important because if you have to pass away, your heirs have still a right to that wealth as well. And if you owing zakah, that zakah needs to be paid on that money that was borrowed to someone. So inshallah, in today's time, let us try to help people, whether it is through loans. If Allah Ta'ala has blessed you and many people are struggling, and let us ensure that it is without interest so that people don't have to go to the bank. You know, your family member of yours needs a new car. You know, this youngster now, he's just starting work, he's taking a taxi, he's borrowing love. Let's help him get a car. And say, you know what, I'm borrowing you this money, interest free, payable when able. Or you know, this youngster is just starting up. Alhamdulillah, you have extra cash with you. Allah Ta'ala has blessed you financially. You know, this youngster is starting. He's now got a family. Let us see how we can assist, put money together to buy him a house. So, inshallah, this is what how we should think in terms of Muslims, to empower one another, to help one another, to help our communities, to help our family members. In terms of livestock, goats, sheep, cows, bulls, and camels for breeding purposes, we're not going to speak on this, but inshallah, you should consult your local ulama when zakah is due on them. And livestock for trade purposes is treated as stock in trade. So if you're selling sheep and goats, then this is considered as stock in trade, and zakat is due on that as well. Non-zakatable items, so precious items not for resale, such as precious stones, artworks, paintings, antiques, stamp collections, you don't have to pay any zakah on that. If you have a house, dwellings, motor vehicles, so if you have many motor vehicles, you don't have to pay zakat on that. If you have many houses, you don't have to pay zakat on those houses. Household effects, personal items that are not gold and silver, fixtures and fittings, and any machinery, you don't pay zakat on that. And then haram wealth, interest. Say we've accrued 10,000 rand of interest, we don't pay zakat on that. In fact, that entire interest amount needs to go to the poor. I'm going to say that again. This is a very important part, that whatever interest we have needs to go to the poor, whether it's a poor Muslim or a non-Muslim. So we can give interest to a poor Muslim, someone that's in a category of zakah below the nisab, to a Muslim or a non-Muslim, because that interest belongs to the poor. So inshallah, what we need to do every month, sometimes we have bank account, savings account, we have small amounts of interest that are being accrued. We need to give this to the poor. And non-gold or silver jewelry such as platinum, titanium, 9 karat gold jewelry, where gold is the minority, diamonds, we don't have to give zakah on that as well. So these are non-zakatable items. Current liabilities, that is money that you owe someone. Okay? So current liabilities, if you owe someone wealth or money, then you're going to subtract that amount from your wealth. So for instance, if you have 30,000 rand, but you're owing someone 5,000 rand, then you will pay zakah on 25,000 rand. Okay? Because that 5,000, so you minus your liabilities. So if you have 30,000 rand, you owe someone 5,000 rand, then you will pay on 25,000 rand in terms of your zakah. But I'm going to extend this a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. A person then needs to look at what type of liability is it. Is it a short-term liability or is it a long-term liability? When we say a long-term liability, is that if you have installments that say is maybe for 5 years or maybe for 10 years, you bought a house and you have to pay it over 10 years, or you bought a vehicle, you have to pay it over 5 years, that's a long-term liability. So in this case, you're not going to pay for the entire, you're not going to subtract the entire amount. So for instance, you bought a vehicle for 50,000 rand and you're paying 3,000 rand a month. It's a long-term liability. Okay? What's going to happen is that, and here there are different opinions. Some of the ulama feel that you will subtract just that month's installment. So say, for instance, you have 10,000 rand, that's what you earn, and you have a 3,000 rand installment, then you will pay on 7,000 rand. So just that month's installment will be considered your expense. Okay? Some ulama, which is the general ulama in South Africa, they would say your current liability will be the total installment for the year. So they would then say it is your total liabilities. If it's 3,000 rand a month, it will be 36,000 rand. That will be your liability. So if you own 50,000 rand, then you need to subtract your liability, which is 36,000 rand, and pay on that amount. Okay. So I hope this is clear. A person needs to see if it's a short-term loan or if it's a long-term loan with regular monthly installments. And the general viewpoint of ulama in South Africa is that you calculate the total amount of liabilities for that year or that installments for that year, which will then form your total liabilities. And then that money that is required to pay for any expense incurred for the month, such as telephone, lights, water rates, your accounts, domestic workers, madrasa, school fees, you can subtract those amounts. But inshallah, what we should do is, to give more zakah. The day we get paid on that amount, we pay our zakah. Inshallah. Although we can become technical and reduce and minus that, but inshallah, for what if you give with an open heart, you pay zakah, we should give zakah with an open heart, it's only 2.5%. If you have 100 rand, you're only going to pay 2.50 rand. Okay, if you have 1,000 rand, you're only giving 25 rand. So inshallah, pay with a good heart, and inshallah, it is a purification for yourself and a purification for your wealth. All right, we're going to conclude with a few common questions. That it is the first that we have, that can you give zakah to one spouse? You cannot give zakah to one spouse and your parents and your offspring. So, for instance, anyone on the top, where your parents, grandparents, you cannot give zakah to. And anyone down from your lineage, meaning your children, your grandchildren, great grandchildren, you cannot give zakah to. You cannot give zakah to your spouse. But you can give zakah to your brother, to your sister, to your mother in law, father in law. You can give them zakah, not a problem. Okay, so anyone going up and down in terms of your lineage, you cannot give zakat to, but anyone on the side, whether it's your uncles, nephews, nieces, you can give them zakah, not a problem. Okay, so another important question that we received that there is no zakah on e-bucks. Okay, our ulama, the viewpoint of our ulama is that it is e-bucks is considered a gift, and the gift will only come into effect when a person actually sort of redeems that. So that is considered a gift. So there's no zakah on e-bucks. The third question that we get very common, that is there zakah on like your provident fund and your pension fund. Now this is a bit technical, so just bear with me, right? When it comes to your provident fund, a person needs to ask that was it a compulsory provident fund, or was it a voluntary provident fund? This is the important thing. If it was compulsory, then there is no zakah on the provident fund. Okay, you'll only pay zakah once you get your payout. So you can work in a company, say for 10 years, there'll be no zakah on the provident fund if it was compulsory. Okay, if it is voluntary, all right, then a person would have every year would have to pay zakah on the value of that amount. And here I'm going to also quantify it a little bit more, because many of the pension funds in South Africa are not Islamic. So and the principle is that you don't pay any zakah on impermissible amounts or impermissible cash. So if you say, for instance, invested in something which is impermissible, you will only pay on the capital amount that you have given. When you receive your dividends, then you actually have to give that away in charity. Okay, if it was invested, in most investments that are not Sharia approved is haram. Okay, so we need to be careful that where we investing there today. Alhamdulillah, as the Islamic finance is growing, there are many reliable muftis that sit on the Sharia boards. They will help you in terms of or guide you in terms of your investment. There are many now Muslim banks. There are many banks that offer Sharia compliant investments. We need to look at that. Okay, because if you had invested in something which is not Islamic, you can only take out your capital amount. And the ulama mentioned that whatever you have received in terms of your dividends actually needs to go in charity, because that is now interest. Okay, then zakat to a wrong person, and this happens many a times. You have to do an assessment first of a person, and people ask, how do I know if a person is in a category of zakat? And it's very simple. For us as organizations, people are much more forthcoming. They fill in a form, they give their financial position, so it's much more easier in terms of an organization. But you could ask questions that, how's things going financially? Are you working? You could visit the person, see their condition. Also, you can ask them, do you owe people money? Do you owe the bank money? And you'll find that many times people do owe people money, and in a very, very casual, non-intrusive way. You can sort of sum up. If a person owes people money, definitely is in a category of zakah. You'll already know this person, because he's in debt, he owes people money. He should most likely be in the category of zakah. And so, say, for instance, if you gave to someone, you done your homework, you done your sort of assessment, and afterwards you found, oh, this person is not in the category of zakah. So you gave him your zakah, and afterwards you found out that he is not in the category of zakah. Then in that case, your zakah is already discharged. You don't have to re-give your zakah. Okay? With regards to a non-Muslim, and this is for the mainstream ulama, they have this viewpoint. Say you gave someone money, and then afterwards you found out that this person wasn't a Muslim. In this case, you will have to re-give your zakah out again. Okay, so what, this is very very important to understand this. So if you've done your assessment and you saw that the person is a Muslim, and you thought strongly that this person is in a category of zakah, and you gave him your zakah, and afterwards you found out he's not in the category of zakah, your zakah inshallah is discharged. Okay, working out one zakah date. How does a person work out your zakah date? Your zakah date happens when you reach the threshold of the nisab. So, for instance, you had nothing, but one day, alhamdulillah, miraculously, someone gave you 10,000 rand, as a hadiyah. Now, on that date, now you over the nisab of 5,400 rand, you now have 10,000 rand. Then you started investing, you open up a business, and now the next year, today is in terms of the Islamic. This is very important. The Islamic date, not the English date. Not people they say I work out mine's at the end of my business year. You can't do that. You must work it out. Your zakah will be on the Islamic date that you choose. So many a times people don't know when they were in the category of zakah. Like for instance, many kids, their parents have savings for them. Once they become baligh, the child has to give zakah. And you need to tell your child that the savings that I have for you, you're going to give zakah on it. The other day I had a youngster, maybe about 13, 14 years old. He came with an envelope and he said, this is zakah. So I filled in the receipt, and then I asked him, was it for your mom or for your dad? He said, no, this is for me. And I said, how wonderful, how beautiful that, and how wonderful for the parents to instill this into the youngster, that he has to give his zakah. 14 years old. And then I just reminded my daughter on the other day on the table after that. In fact, he encouraged me and he jogged me that I need to tell my daughter that, you got money in your bank account, you need to discharge your zakah. Obviously, we will access it for her and work it out with her, and then we will dispense the zakah. If you don't know when you were in the category of zakah, ulama mentioned that then you choose a date. Easiest, you choose the date. Many people do it in Ramadan because that's when we know the dates, and give something extra because in case you never, you probably don't know that maybe you were in a category of zakah earlier, so give something extra as well in terms of compensation. Some people choose the first of Ramadan, some people choose the 15th of Ramadan, some people choose the 27th of Ramadan. That will be the date when you will now become in the category of zakah. And then paying zakah on behalf of someone else, this can be done, but it can be done. See, for instance, with your spouse, you're telling your wife that I'll pay our zakah, or to this, I'm giving to this organization, or I'm giving to this person. It has to be with the consent of someone else. So if you're paying on behalf of your wife, she has to give consent to you that it's fine, you can pay zakah on my behalf, and vice versa. Sometimes a woman dispenses the zakah on behalf of her husband, on behalf of the family. Sometimes people have a family zakah where they pull their zakah together. Then one person pays on behalf, or pays out on behalf of every person or of the family. So that can also be done. So that comes to the end of our basic introduction to zakah. I can just ask our technical guy here if there are any questions. Inshallah, we'll try to our level best to answer the zakah. Okay, so we'll see how many we can go through. Okay, I spoke on the Provident Fund. I see Brother Shiraz Ghani. Salams, can we give zakah to non-Muslims for food? Many giving lillah for all mankind. But once this gets exhausted and the need is still there and cannot be ignored, can zakah be used? I did speak about this in terms of non-Muslims. And I did mention this is a very technical fiqh argument, and this is a very introductory course to zakah. So inshallah, I will try to answer that on a personal level. The money is in Sharia funds. Do I include the money in this provident fund in my Zakah calculation, even though I cannot access it? I mentioned that if it was voluntary, like you voluntarily set up maybe like a 60 month investment or fixed deposit investment, if it was voluntary, yes, you will have to pay zakah on that. Yusuf Umar, Assalamu alaikum, Mulana. Please could you clarify the instance where due to a few criterion, someone is eligible to receive zakah, but is ruled out owning expense electronic devices like televisions. There is the viewpoint of ulama that if they do have things which are not necessary, they would first have to dispense of that. There is a viewpoint of ulama and of the muftis. But as I said, the best criteria is always to ask a person, if you are you in the category of of a loan? Do you owe people money? That's the easiest way to be able to be able to judge that. Uh, in terms of what you have mentioned, it is I got cut off. Okay. In terms of in this case, it is always important that we look at people, look at organizations to do this because sometimes it can become a bit uncomfortable. But if there are organizations, they generally have people have this rapport with organizations, with ulama, with the imams. So it's not so difficult to do that. The next question: can interest be used to contribute towards an orphan or to pay towards purchasing a property to build an orphanage? Can zakah be used to settle payment? So if the orphan is in the category of zakah, they could use those funds, the interest funds, to um, to to help that orphan or to pay towards the purchasing of a property or to build an orphanage. And can zakah be used to settle payment? So yeah, again, we need to, in terms of interest, there is a viewpoint of some ulama that interest can be used, and this is a viewpoint of some ulama that interest can be used to build a public benefit for something which is of public benefit. So, for example, like an orphanage, or or something. Obviously, you cannot use interest for a masjid, but if there's something of public benefit, like an orphanage, and interest funds could be used for that. There is a view of some ulama. In terms of zakah, one of the criteria of zakah is that the recipient of zakah needs to get ownership. He needs to become the owner. So, for example, if you're using zakah to build an orphanage, there is no one that is really the owner. It's a sort of a public ownership. Okay, so that is why that the more conservative view of the ulama, or the general view of the ulama, is that zakah cannot be used to build a public benefit place, but zakah needs to go to an individual person, and he needs to take ownership, which is called tamlik of that zakah. Okay. Okay. The Mulana, what is the conversion rate is used when collecting zakah on forex money, selling or spot rate? Uh, my personal opinion, and I need to see again, I need to be sure, but I would think it's on the current value. What's the value of it? That's what the person is going to pay. And remember, just to speak of the series, that when you're doing your forex and you buy purchasing forex, it's very important that we purchase at the immediate rate, at the spot rate, and not in futures, because that becomes impermissible. It becomes interest. So it's very important that when we're doing our currency conversion, it's done at that point in time, and it is done immediately. Okay, inshallah, I'm going to just move on. I think our time is going to end now, and the Ashraful Aid Organization just asked me to do a quick overview of what the organization does, and it's also a channel for you to dispense your zakah. Alhamdulillah, in terms of the organization, it has 25 years of experience. If you have any questions, those are my contact details. Suhail Wadee at ashrafulaid.org. You could send me further questions, and inshallah, I will try to answer those questions. Okay, inshallah, suhail.wadi at ashrafulaid.org. In terms of the Ashraful Aid organization, alhamdulillah, it has been established for over 25 years, and we help people across the globe from all walks of life. And our core focus of the organization is beyond color, caste, or creed. It's for humanity with humanity. So we help everyone. And inshallah, we have over 200 volunteers and over 40 staff worldwide. And we work in many countries. I think we're reaching close to about 15 countries where we're working. Alhamdulillah, these are the different countries that we are operating, and this is growing at a rapid pace and expanding as well. In terms of meals donated, this was last year's figures. This year it's much, much more. Just alone in this COVID period, Ashraful Aid has donated close to 60,000 meals only now in this last 3 weeks, last month or so. So in terms of relief aid, zero hunger, our relief aid programs around the world, many Muslims that are suffering through, and we provide meals for them, groceries for them, basic food aid. Okay, some of the places where we provide food and food aid is South Africa, Mozambique, Yemen, Zimbabwe, Syria, Palestine, and in Malawi, and many other countries as well. In terms of water, we've donated in the last year over 1 million liters of water has been donated, and this has been in different parts of the world through wells that we have put up in Mozambique, in South Africa, Yemen, and Sri Lanka, many parts of the world, the provision of clean, drinkable water. Alhamdulillah. So over 1 million liters in the last year has been distributed through our water projects. We know water is the base of human life. Nabi Sallallahu also said that the best form of charity is to give water as well. And also in terms of the hadith, Nabi Sallallahu mentioned, خِيَارُكُمْ مَنْ أَطْعَمَ الطَّعَامِ, the best of you is he who feeds people. So giving food and helping people. Then we look at our medical outreach program. This is in at the Johannesburg hospital, where we redone the whole pediatric ward of the cancer patients, and we have many medical programs that we done throughout South Africa and in different parts of the world. In terms of where we work across different groupings, we have many female volunteers that does many of the work around South Africa and around the world, and many volunteers. If you would like to join part of our programs, you could inshallah send us an email to be part of our volunteer program. We have many Muslim and non-Muslim volunteers that take part of our programs in South Africa and across the world. Look at sustainable development. So looking at, it's not only giving immediate needs, but also looking at sustainable development. So here, in terms of this house that has been built for this lady in many parts of the world, building of schools. This is a school that we're building in Syria. Alhamdulillah, this has been completed. This is a classroom that we facilitated at the Abdullah bin Salam Islamic Center. These are houses that have been built in Lebanon. The sewing skills that we support in Lenasia and in Douglas in the Northern Cape. And we're also supporting the building of a clinic in Zimbabwe. So these are some of the long-term developmental goals and projects that we are busy with. In terms of Adelaide, and this was a video, but I think I got it on a PDF. some of the work that we do. This is some of the refugee camps that we've been there. We've been there personally. This is in Syria, where we help many of the refugees. These are part of our programs of helping refugees around the world. We know the difficult conditions that they are facing, and inshallah, not only in South Africa, because Ashraful Aid is a global humanitarian organization, it helps people from all parts of the world, and also helping people in South Africa where the headquarters are. So, Alhamdulillah, we can only thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is some of the news articles, recent news articles that have come out of the Ashraful Aid Foundation. And how we work, very important as an organization, we be as transparent as possible and work properly as possible. There's a great sense of accountability. It's a fundamental part of the organization. We are registered NPO. We are registered PBO with a Section 18A status. We have South African Reserve Bank clearance in terms of funds transfer. Our financials are published on our website. So if you want to access our financials, it can be accessed there as well on our website. We work with different stakeholders, disaster management, social development, and many other stakeholders. We ensure that almost every project of ours, we report on that project. And alhamdulillah, it is through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have 25 years, which it was founded in 1995. Ashraful Ulum was founded in 1995 and has now extended to Ashraful Waqf and Ashraful Aid as well. So 25 years of experience. And this is only through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and through the support of donors. So inshallah, help us change lives, join our global community, volunteer or donate today. Inshallah, that is our contact details. If you want our banking details, you could go to our website, which is www.ashrafulaid.org, or you could send us an email at info@ashrafulaid.org. And I would like to thank you for being part, and I'd like to apologize. We went a little bit over time, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. And if there are any comments or any feedback, then please send us an email, or you can also WhatsApp me on my personal number 083 32 42853. That is 083 32 42853. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.